Reports over Alexander Isak's future have intensified this morning. Will he ever play for Newcastle again? Manchester United have to sell if they are to bring in new players. Will Ruben Amorim be able to bring in a midfielder before the end of the window? And could that man be Carlos Baleba? And Mark Gay is a man in demand. Crystal Palace owner Steve Parish admits they may be forced to sell the defender. A lot of people think that United need to improve their midfield. Yeah. Do you think Carlos Baleba is the solution? Are you a believer?
I was waiting for you to say that. You had to say it. You had to say it. I am a believer. I really am. I mean, what I find fascinating is that the recruitment that Brighton do, the data-driven recruitment, how widespread their recruitment is, that they lose a player of the calibre of Moises Caicedo. They lined up Carlos Baleba as that replacement straight away, signed from Lille. Took a little bit of time to settle in at Brighton, but last season he was terrific. He's got the physicality to get around the pitch. He's exactly what everybody's talking about, what Manchester United need. Casemiro in the back end of his career. Last season, Christian Eriksen there again, back end of his career. They have got Manuel Ugarte, they have got Kobbie Mainoo as well, but it feels like a younger player who can get around the pitch in that defensive midfield area is what Manchester United, Ruben Amorim, is crying out in his system. And Jeff, you really, like, Bruno Fernandes is still the star man at United, despite the signings they've made. For me, if I see Carlos Baleba in that defensive midfield spot, that frees up Fernandes more to do what Manchester United need Bruno Fernandes to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think bringing him in would be exciting because it gives Fernandes a chance then to link up with all these new players that are coming in, and it just lets him be him, and I think it'd be a perfect fit. Because
we see him drop back,
too
chase
far,
a lot.
Yeah.
He does, doesn't he? Does almost like the dirty work in midfield when you kind of want Bruno Fernandes to be that link, as you said, and a link with Matheus Cunha, Brian Mbeumo, and now Benjamin Sesko up front. You throw Carlos Baleba in the mix, I don't think I'll be the only one believing. It will be the Manchester United fans believing that they can do something very, very special. But Matt, will they get him this window? Very unlikely. Brighton won't want to sell. Yeah. You mentioned the figure they're talking about. They want in excess of what Chelsea paid for Moises Caicedo. I believe they could get in excess of what Chelsea paid for Moises Caicedo. I rate this player that highly, and he's young. He's only 21 still.
And we should make it clear that Brighton have made it clear that he is absolutely not for sale. They want to keep hold of Carlos Baleba, and it sounds like if anyone wants him, they're going to have to spend big money. Clubs now in Newcastle, because there's another big story concerning Alexander Isak. The Athletic and David Ornstein this morning are reporting that the player is adamant that he will not play for Newcastle again, even if the window closes. So interesting developments, according to David Ornstein. How does Eddie Howe deal with the situation now that this information has come out?
It's very, very difficult for him. I'm sure Eddie would have liked to have held on to Isak and then add a few players, but when you hear news like that, is there any coming back from it? Possibly not. I think it's hard. I think it's now managing the situation, and probably I think they'll let Isak go maybe on their terms when they've got a few players in and they feel like the squad's where they want it at. But if this news is right, it's going to be really difficult for them, and you know, especially a big year with them in Champions League and all. It's a tough one for the whole club and the fans to take.
I know you almost overlapped with Isak, didn't you, at Newcastle? You didn't really have much interaction with him, but it does seem a bit out of character. Does his behaviour and this stance he's taking, does it surprise you?
Yeah, from what I know of players there who are friends with him, it's definitely out of character. It's something you don't expect from, I'd say, a lot of players. But you know, when a big club, don't get me wrong, Newcastle are massive, but when a club like Liverpool have come in with the price tag as well, you know, there's not many ways you can sort of force your way out of a club, and it seems like he's picked this one, and that's the route he's going down, which, you know, will be hard to accept for everyone who's you know, a Newcastle fan or players.
And Jeff, look, Eddie Howe spoke, didn't he? I think it was last week, and said that certain players have been affected by the situation with Alexander Isak. As a player who's been in dressing rooms with, I'm assuming, players who've probably had similar situations where their heads turned. How hard is it for you, being part of that current squad, to continue to just go on as normal when one of your star players is refusing to play for the club again?
Yeah, it's tough, but I think footballers, you're with each other every day. You understand if that's the stance he's took. You accept it. You probably won't see him day to day in any way where he'll be training away from the group. But if things were to turn around and he wasn't to go, I think after a couple of days, the lads, they'll take him back in. They know he's going to be great for the club as well. So they'd be hoping that Newcastle can hold on to him, and then they'll make up and they'll get playing games together. And like I said, you're there with each other every day. You're not going to hold a grudge and not talk to him for the rest of the season.
So is it that simple? It's just like, almost like friends falling out, little fallout, couple of days, dust settled,
kiss and make up,
back in. And...
yeah, I think they'll be okay, yeah.
Okay.
But you've actually had, I don't like using this term, but the bomb squad, I'm sure you don't refer to it as that when you're on it, but you've had experience of that, haven't you, in Newcastle, when you had to train with the under-21. So what is that like when you're forced to do that? Do you have any contact with the other players, with the manager? Does it feel like you're not part of the club? How does it feel?
Yeah, it is difficult. You're part of the club, but you're not. Like obviously my situation was a lot different to Isak's, where I'm sure they'd be still wrapping him in cotton wool a little bit, if he's going to do the transfer, they'll need him to be fit, or else if he's going to come, they're going to do a U-turn and he's going to play for the club, they'll need him fit again. But you're down sort of with the 21s, you're training with the kids, as you'd say. The staff are lovely down there, to be fair, but for me, it's like I had a few other players alongside me there, so we're all in the same situation. There's some days it's difficult mentally to just go in and train, so I don't know how it's going to be for him if he's on his own doing that sort of stuff, so it could be tough, yeah.
Well, what will he be doing then right now? Will he just be training by himself, do you think? Will he be with his own fitness guy? Will he be with club staff? How will it be working?
Yeah, it was quite loose with us, so you could join in training if you wanted, or you could have a running session or stay in the gym. It's sort of totally up to you. So I don't know how his injury is, or if he has his own staff that have come in with him. But yeah, it'll be sort of his decision.
Okay, and I guess you want to stay fit, don't you? So he'll want to do as much work as he can. We'll keep you updated as to anything that happens on the Isak front. But we're hearing from David Ornstein anyway that he has told Newcastle that he's adamant he will not play for them again, even if the window closes. Better news for Newcastle is we're expecting news on Malik Thiaw's move from AC Milan to the club. He's been having a medical, the defender who's on the verge of joining. James, what can you tell us about this? And is this an area that Newcastle have probably needed to strengthen for a while, centre-back?
Yeah, look, I'm glad you've moved on to some good news for Newcastle fans, because it's been a really tough transfer window after such a positive end to the year, finishing in those Champions League spots. To have this Alexander Isak saga just dragging on and dragging on even more as it is this morning. But yeah, Malik Thiaw, look, a centre-back is what's been something that Eddie Howe and Newcastle have been looking at now for over a year. If you remember, if we go back to last summer, they had offers up to £70 million rejected by Crystal Palace for Mark Guehi. They still tried to essentially sign him in January as well and couldn't get that deal over the line. So they've been looking at their centre-back options. If you look at the centre-backs they've got, Jamal Lascelles entering his final year of his contract. He's 31. Fabian Schär on that right-hand side, 33 now. He's done great. He's done a great job, actually, at centre-back for Newcastle, but he's coming to the end of his career. He's got 1 year left too. Malik Thiaw's a right-sided centre-half. He fits the bill very well. Young, 24 years old, 6'4", real physicality, played in Serie A, which is still can be quite a physical league as well over there. So, look, I think it's a smart signing. It's something where they're looking to build their squad. There's something they still have to deal with, regardless of this Alexander Isak situation. They can't let it just stall their growth and stall their movements in a transfer window. They still have to look at all the other areas, and they're making that business work. So, yeah, smart, sensible signing, it seems.
OK, let's talk about Crystal Palace now, though, because their chairman, Steve Parish, admitted the club could be forced to consider selling their captain, Mark Guehi, this summer. In fact, I'm going to read you his exact comments. Very interesting, James. When asked whether they'd have to consider it, he said, "We'd have to, of course. For players of that calibre to leave on a free, it's a problem. No doubt about it, unfortunately." When you think of the Palace players that are coveted, the big ones, Guehi, Eze, Mateta, Adam Wharton, you put in there as well, is Guehi, because of his contract situation, by far and away the most likely to leave
Yeah, absolutely. I think first and foremost, you look at the contract situation, and for a club like Crystal Palace, as Steve Parish said in his very open comments, and I think adding to that, he said, but we're Crystal Palace. He's still trying to maybe, and talking about the fact they're not one of the big clubs yet. They are a smaller club. They have to do things slightly differently to what, say, your Liverpools, your Arsenals, Chelsea's, etc. are doing. So, yes, you look at the contract. You look at Mark Guehi and you go, well, hold on a minute. Last year, they rejected £65 million from Newcastle in the summer. I think they rejected a bid from Tottenham in January as well for the player. He's been there since 2021. He's been a key part of that side in consolidating them as a Premier League unit, as a strong Premier League club, able to compete in cup competitions, as we saw successfully last year. Big part of that team as a club captain, big part of the England setup now as well. Likely, you'd probably say England's number one centre-back right now, and expect him to be starting in the World Cup under Thomas Tuchel. But now's the time they've got to look and go, hold on a minute, can we afford to lose a player for free? Well, Steve Parish says, no, we can't. We can't afford to let a player go when his contract runs out. You have to look and go, OK, well, Mark Guehi's that player, that commodity, we're going to reluctantly have to let go. Then it's about options, isn't it? It's about where's his options.
Well, that's it. I mean, a lot of teams, I'd imagine, Jeff, would want him. You know, Newcastle wanted him in the past. They bid for him. It rejected a few times last year by Palace. Liverpool have been linked. Which top team do you think would Guehi best fit? What would be the best fit for him and for the club?
For the club, for Palace, whoever pays the most, of course. But no, for him as a player, it's going to be difficult because you look at a lot of the top clubs, they have a great centre-back pairing. So he's going to have to take that into consideration as well and see what's the best move forward for him. He's at a good age, he's had a lot of games under his belt, but like you were saying earlier, it's coming into a World Cup year. He needs to be playing every week, so it's a big decision for him.
Would he play every week at Liverpool if he went there?
He would get game time, of course, but you know the centre-back pairing there have been brilliant last year. They've got a lot of games, but he wants to play every week, so that's the difficult decision for him.
And I think that's where you have to look and go, well, hold on a minute, what are his options? Now, we know that the way these big clubs now are working, they're building stronger squads where they've got players in all positions where they can step in at any point and not make the team weaker. Now, adding Mark Guehi into a squad is going to make you stronger straight away. Liverpool, yes, with Konate and Van Dijk. Other options, Newcastle have always been interested. Tottenham have shown interest. Both have got pretty solid centre-back pairings at the moment. Chelsea could be an interesting one. His old club, Levi Colwell's picked up that unfortunate ACL injury. Even before that, there was still a lot of talk about Chelsea's need for strength in that centre-back option. Well, hold on a minute. You've got an England international, captain of his side, experience, also knows that club very well. Could that potentially be an option for him? First of all, he's not going to be short of options. He's a quality player, but it's pretty sad for Crystal Palace if they have to accept that their captain's going to be leaving at the end of the window.
The others might be harder to prize away, you know, the likes of Eze, for example. What do you think about Eze's future? Arsenal have been heavily linked, really, but no bids come in. Spurs have been linked as well. Do you think he'll be a Crystal Palace player come the end of the window?
I think he will, yeah, because Crystal Palace seem to, you know, have ambitions for this year, you know, after finishing so positively last year. But for me, I think he's a fantastic player. I love watching him. He glides with the ball. He makes things look so easy, and he could fit into a top club 100%. He sort of reminds me of like a Grealish type player, just the way they move with the ball. And we've seen Jack's been able to go in the City and do the business, so I think he could easily.
Are there still a lot of reasons to stay at Crystal Palace? People forget that they are still in Europe. They might not be in the Europa League, but the vibe seems good. They've got a good manager. Are there still a lot of reasons for these top players to stay there?
I think so, yeah. I think sometimes if you're happy at a club and you know the whole environment, you have friends there, you enjoy the football, you know, the grass isn't always greener, but then, you know, you might have ambitions to go play in the Champions League or the Europa League. So they're the sort of options he has to weigh up.
And with Eze, he's 27 years old, so yeah, he is a little bit older, and ambitions like Champions League football, they don't come around very often. The likelihood and the reality is he's certainly not going to get that at Crystal Palace, but he will get it somewhere else. Now, with Eze, we talk about contracts. He's got 2 years left on his contract. So if Crystal Palace wants to maximise the value of Eze, they're going to have to sell him in this window, because after that, his value is going to decrease. So it's whether they are willing to do that. It's going to be very difficult because he's such a key component of that squad. Tottenham, Arsenal, both interested. We've been reporting they've been interested all summer long. Nobody's yet made an offer. He did have a release clause in his contract, which is now expired. The stipulations of that release clause meant there was quite a bit of money up front, and I think that's what was probably putting suitors off at that point. But that doesn't necessarily mean that deal won't take place. So with Eze, I think it's going to be one to watch. But I agree with you. Exciting prospect, exciting player who will improve pretty much every Premier League side there is.
You touched on. Well, good morning to all you guys at home. Good morning to James Green and to the former Newcastle and Burnley midfielder who is on debut, Jeff Hendrick. Good to see you, mate. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Excited to get going.
We're excited to hear your views, mate. We're going to get Jeff's thoughts on Newcastle, on Grealish, on loads of other things. First, though, let's get to Everton as they get closer to signing Grealish from Manchester City. Vinny O'Connor is at Everton's training ground for us. Good morning to you once again, Vinny. So how close is this move to being announced then?
Yeah, it is very close. I think we're expecting an announcement to come today because Jack Grealish underwent his medical yesterday afternoon with Everton. He was also spending some time up at the training ground after undergoing the scans away at a local hospital as well. And we're expecting him back here at some point this morning as well. And then probably you would expect at least the announcement to follow not too long after that. And that's all ahead of completing what will be a season-long loan deal move from Manchester City. And Everton, of course, having that option to buy Jack Grealish at the end of that for £50 million as well. And it's a deal that's moved relatively quickly in some respects since Everton first started that conversation with Manchester City. I think a lot of us were expecting Jack Grealish to take his time over making his decision because there were other clubs interested, and feasibly Jack Grealish could easily have waited until later on in this window, right up until the deadline, to assess exactly what options. But at the same time, he is desperate to get back playing regular first-team football. He's desperate to get back in the England squad. We know how disappointed he was to have missed out on the Euros squad as well. His target is undoubtedly being part of that England squad for the World Cup. And I think he's also thinking about getting back into the squad setup in time for those internationals against Serbia and Andorra next month. And so it's a deal that suits Jack Grealish. Obviously, the fact that he only started 7 Premier League games, that wouldn't do his international chances any favours. Here at Everton, he will ultimately get that opportunity for regular first-team football. And he knows, once again, he'll be working for a manager who rates him highly. David Moyes spoke about him being possibly the best player in the Premier League back in 2021. Well, now Jack Grealish has the chance to reignite his career under David Moyes here at Everton.
Vinny, David Moyes was quite vocal, wasn't he, not long ago, about wanting a few signings. Can we expect any further incomings?
Yeah, he was talking about needing, throughout this whole window, 9 or 10 players in. Well, he's got 6 in so far, but we are expecting more arrivals at Everton before that deadline. And that's because they're also looking to strengthen their options at right back. They could do with a holding midfielder coming in. We also know that they want greater attacking options down the right-hand side. They're very much top-heavy when it comes to down the left-hand side, because obviously Illiman and Dye can operate off the left-hand side. Dwight McNeil plays down the left-hand side. Jack Grealish coming in can play off the left-hand side as well as the number 10 role as well. So we know of Everton's interest, obviously, in Tyler Dibbling, the fact that they've had three bids rejected by Southampton, but also that they've looked at other options, and Abdul Fatawu at Leicester City comes into that as well, maybe cooling slightly their interest on Tyler Dibbling. I think there's still a chance that they could go back in, but obviously if they were to go back in for Tyler Dibbling, they need some encouragement for Southampton that they're going to compromise on their asking price as well. I think ultimately David Moyes would also like to get in another striking option, because Tierno O'Barry's pretty raw, having come in this summer, and they could do with maybe a little bit of extra backup for Beto, because maybe Chimiti hasn't quite shown his best form so far in this pre-season either. Neither has Beto, because David Moyes has spoken about that as well. So ultimately what we are expecting is Everton to do more business, but that 6th summer signing will be Jack Grealish, and we expect that announcement later today.
Right, before we go on, we've got a bit of breaking news from Bournemouth, because they have confirmed the sale now of Ilya Zabani to Paris Saint-Germain. The deal is worth £54.5 million guaranteed with add-ons. So he joins the likes of Milos Kerkez, Dean Howson. Kepa has left as well, because he was only on loan at Bournemouth last year. In leaving the club, they're going to need almost a completely new backline, aren't they? Bafode Diakite has been signed from Lille, and he is expected to be the replacement for Howson and for Zabani. But Zabani, it's been confirmed now, he is off to PSG. The deal is worth £54.5 million plus add-ons. Right, let's talk about Jack Grealish and Everton then. Before we get on to Grealish, though, actually, Jeff, have you ever known a transfer window like this? It's been extraordinary, hasn't it? Particularly for the top sides.
Yeah, like I said, I was looking last night at the list of players in and out of every club, and double figures nearly every club going. It's been crazy, especially the last couple of weeks.
Absolutely, and you know it's going to carry on, isn't it? We expect a few more going right up to the wire. Jack Grealish is a deal that could have gone to the wire. He's a player that you know well from the Republic of Ireland 21s. In fact, you tried to convince him to stay, didn't you?
Yeah, I think everyone did. No, everyone knows Jack he's so talented, and I think his love for the game shows. He expresses it on the pitch, and it would have hurt him last year with the way things went, and he didn't get as much game time as he would have liked. So, knowing him so well, I think Everton's probably a great fit for him. Just where he's located, he doesn't have to, move house or anything. He can just get straight into playing football and focus on getting back to the Jack we all know.
Jeff, do you think his best position is that wide left like he played for Manchester City, or is he better suited maybe coming inside? Because I think it was the England game under Lee Carsley against Republic of Ireland. He played that central role and actually looked the best player on the park. Is that a better role for him, do you think?
Yeah, he was brilliant in that game, by the way. Of course, I watched it. But, having known him since he was younger, he's played off the left, he's played through the middle, like you said. And I think it doesn't matter if it's on the left or middle, once you give him that freedom to express himself and play the game, he's going to unlock a lot of defences.
Is that the key? Sorry, the freedom. Like, how do we get to see Jack Grealish of Aston Villa again? Is it all about just not restraining him too much and giving him that freedom to roam wherever he plays?
Yeah, because even when he was at Villa and they came back into the Premier League, he'd done the hard work off the ball. But then when it was time they had the ball, he did have that freedom. You could see he'd go roaming at times if he was getting heavily marked. So if you give him that freedom, he's got the game intelligence, and you just have to trust him with it.
Is that something, do you think, that David Moyes is willing to accept then, by accepting Jack Grealish in? Because a lot of people have been talking about Grealish at Manchester City, that maybe Pep Guardiola overly coached him and stopped that freedom that we saw of a player dictating games like he did at Aston Villa, the maverick side of Jack Grealish. Do you think David Moyes is acceptant of that and will be able to flourish in that Everton side, being that number one kind of maverick in that team around maybe a more structured setting?
Yeah, I'm not going to say Pep done anything wrong, because obviously they won the
treble. I'm not criticising the great Pep Guardiola.
But I think it's a good sort of balance you need, where he will be in the framework of the team, and he'll do the hard work. But then if you just let him be free, like you said, he's got a bit of magic inside him, and he knows how to produce it in big games.
Because he's one of those players that I think as fans you just want to see the best of Jack Grealish. I mean, it's not to say that move to Manchester City didn't necessarily work out. If you look at the fact he still won three Premier League titles, Champions League, and actually he was quite influential in that 22-23 campaign. I think he didn't play 90 minutes once in the knockout stages of the Champions League. That was only when he came off after 50 minutes against RB Leipzig when they won 7-0 in the knockout stage. So, look, he was a key part of them winning the Champions League. But I think you just want to see the best of Jack Grealish. You want to see that exciting talent run again. And I guess I was going to ask you, Jeff, how crucial is it for players now building up to this year being a World Cup year? Someone like Jack Grealish on the fringes of that England side, new manager in, opportunity to play under Thomas Tuchel. He's got to be playing games, right?
Yeah, totally agree. Like I said, he's such an exciting talent, and for him to be missing out in a squad, an English squad, is, for me being from Ireland, it's crazy seeing someone that talented. So I just want to see him back happy, enjoying his football, and if he does what we all know he can do, he should be in the squad. But like you said, he needs to go and play every game this year to be in contention, because the English squad is filled with talented players, and it's difficult. And if you don't perform or you get injured, you miss out. And he's getting to he's not old, but the latter ages of your career, you start running out of competitions you can't make.
Yeah, it's a big year for him, no doubt. Former teammate of Jeff's. I want to talk about one of your former clubs, Chelsea there, James. I just want to touch on them briefly. You touched on Gabe possibly returning there. And it's been a busy summer of player sales and incomings at Chelsea. The one man to keep an eye on over the next few weeks, though, is Nicolas Jackson, who has told the club that he wants to explore his options. The only issue is his valuation, which is quite high. Is that the big stumbling block for him leaving?
I think that'll be a huge stumbling block. He's got 8 years left on his contract, which is quite remarkable when you think about it. So if someone's got 8 years left on his contract, their value is so much higher. But he's young, he's 24 years old, but for Chelsea, they're looking at recouping around 80 to 100 million pounds. They're using Hugo Ekitike's move to Liverpool as a bit of a benchmark in terms of value. It's a player that's can play in the Premier League, proven in the Premier League, but is he an 80 to 100 million pound striker? Personally, I'm unsure, and I think that makes a deal at that price very, very difficult to make happen.
Jeff, if the valuation comes down, could you see him at Newcastle?
I think the value does need to come down, definitely. At Newcastle, I'm unsure. Just Newcastle have missed out on a few targets they've had this year, and I think just because Jackson's become available, I don't know if they will just say yes and jump at that as their option. I'm sure they have other players on their list who they will be looking to get in. So just because he's become available, I don't think he's...
Fans, we're going to have a brief line on Good Morning Sports Fans, Good Morning Transfers. I've just got it on the brain there. I missed that show.
I think if you carried on, nobody would have picked it up.
Producer said it in my ear, so I had to correct myself straight away.
That's
an old show.
It's his baby, remember. It's his baby.
Line from West Ham. They're hoping to add to their squad. James, they're interested in Mateus Fernandes from Southampton.
Yeah, 21 years old, signed from Sporting last year for just over £12 million. He's got 4 years left on his contract. He came off the bench actually against Wrexham, played 31 minutes, key part of changing that game as well when picking up 3 points. Really talented player. I heard there was interest from Atletico Madrid earlier on in this summer as well. I watched him play last year towards the end of the season against Arsenal. He was terrific in the middle of the park. Really creative, forward-thinking player. An exciting prospect, someone that West Ham and Graham Potter are looking at bringing in if they possibly can this summer.
Well, as you see, Jeff Hendrick is still here. We're going to talk about one of Jeff's former clubs, Burnley, a club that's close to your heart, I'm sure. Let's have a look at the signings that Burnley have made as they attempt to stay up in the Premier League, because that will be the main aim here, won't it? They've signed a lot of players. What do you make of the business they've done so far? If you look at that, they've signed 3 players from Chelsea, for example. You know, Bashir Humphreys, Ugo Chukwu. Amongst those, Martin Dubravka's come in to replace James Trafford. They've signed some players that were there last year, the likes of Marcus Edwards. And then, of course, the big name really is Kyle Walker coming in for £5 million. What do you think of the mix of players they've brought in?
I think it's a good mix. You've got some young players who are leaving big clubs and hungry to go and play. And then you've got some older players, as you'd say, with lots of experience. Like you said, Kyle Walker, he's been there. He's won nearly everything. He's a leader. He has high expectations when it's training and game time as well. So he'll be fantastic. And then the likes of Martin Dubravka, who I played alongside, he's a great keeper. Maybe he was a bit unlucky with injuries while I was there with him, and then our keepers came in and replaced him and all that sort of stuff. But no, I think they've got a very good mix of young and old players.
Yeah. How important is it also to have that Premier League experience in there?
Yeah, it's massive, and I think that the main thing is the manager here. He's had a couple of clubs where he's been in the Premier League as a player himself, and then as a head coach. I know people who've played under him, and they say how detailed he is. You know, he'll be confident he can keep Burnley in the Premier League. Yeah,
he's always wearing the same jacket, isn't he? When
he's got good style.
He's got a good style. Yeah, I'll give him that. Good hair as well. How about players that have left though? Because Josh Brownhill, vastly experienced captain, he's not signed a new contract. They've lost CJ Egan-Riley as well to Marseille. He was a key player for them in defence last year. Particularly Brownhill. How big a miss is he going to be?
Yeah, I think it's massive. His goal involvement last year was huge. And then if you look at, he was the captain, he was sort of the leader of the group. For them to lose a player like that, it is tough. And, you know, I know who's stepping in, Josh Cullen is stepping in to be the captain this year. And he's a great lad, and he'll try and lead them in the same way that Josh did. But it did surprise me a little bit that Josh wasn't staying at the club, especially with getting back into the Premier League. So, you know, I wish him all the best, but I think the manager has got enough players in, and he knows exactly what he wants to do with that group.
I've just got a bit of news to bring you because the former Manchester United defender Victor Lindelof is in talks with Bayer Leverkusen, according to Sky Germany. So could well be linking up with his old manager from Manchester United, Erik ten Hag. Before we finish, Jeff, I just want to talk to you about what you're up to because you are still playing. You know, most recently you're back at Derby. These are. Wow, I mean, that's a long time ago.
You didn't need to put that image up.
We did. Obviously, spent a lot of time at Newcastle, spent a lot of time at Burnley as well. What are your hopes from here? Are you keen to keep on playing for as long as possible?
Yeah, for me, you know, I want to play as long as I can and as long as I can enjoy it. But it's hard when, like, I'm not old, but when you get to a certain age, you just come on. You're not as desirable for the clubs. They want younger players who they can grow and make money off. But for me, I'd like somewhere local enough to I can still be around my family. I went back last year to Derby. I think I'd done 6-7 weeks, but after not playing for a few months, trying to get up to speed wasn't good. I tore my calf, so it was just disappointing. I thought going back to the club who started it all off for me would have been nice, but it didn't happen the way I would have liked it. But I am available if the team needs me, but like I said, it has to be a good suit for me as well because I have priorities now.
Okay, so what kind of level? I mean, have you had offers come in? What sort of level would you like to play at?
There's been a couple of clubs, yeah, who showed interest, and then, like I said, it's just gone quiet out of nowhere, and then this was sort of lower end Championship and League One, and people have asked me because I've not played in below the Championship before, would you go and play? Of course I would. If it's the right fit for me, I could find happiness anywhere once I'm playing, and the kids can come and watch me as well, which is, my youngest hasn't seen me play football really, so that's something I'd like to do.
Yeah.
It's a case of just being a bit patient in this time, but I can imagine that's pretty tough as time's ticking.
Yeah, the patience, but you can only do what's in front of you, and then the options aren't there right now, so there's no point crying over it. Or if teams come along, happy days, but if not, I'll get on with my life and I'll still spend lots of time with my family, so there's pros and cons to it.
Okay, so we're looking sort of around southwest London, ideally.
Anywhere within an hour and a half. Yeah.
Okay.
Matt wants his commission, you see.
Let your agent know I want 4%, please, after all of that.